This is Kineer, and I'm playing through the game Forever Skies, which is from a studio called Far From Home. It's a small studio in Poland. This game has been in early access since mid 2023, and they just recently released in December of 2024 a pretty major update that includes co-op play as well as a lot of quality of life stuff. And they also have this seasonal event called Frozen Wishes, which is the first time I've done one of those. There have been some patches along the way. Proven to be a pretty good game as far as I'm concerned. I tend to look at games from three perspectives. One is the world and story. Let's say the world building and the story of the game itself. The second is going to be the game mechanics and the game loops, and then the technical and artistic delivery or execution of the game. And I'm probably only a third of the way into this game at this point in time, maybe half the way through. I don't really know. We'll find out when the game is out. It's still early access, so we can't really say that it's complete. But I would say if I take those three parts and I turn them into like a 10-point scale, which a lot of people do, I'll give them three, a maximum of 3 in each of those, and then I keep 1 point for myself. But from a world building story perspective, if I look at the setting that they've kind of mapped out, because in traditional storytelling, the setting is largely it's as much a character as anything else. So I'll look at the setting that they've mapped out, the character in the story, which is usually just the player, but there aren't really a lot of other NPCs or characters in this particular game, and then the story itself and the dialogue. This game is an easy 2 to 2.5 out of 3, even partially through, I think. Like the idea of this world, the idea that there's been some kind of calamity, an apocalypse or something like that, is absolutely, I think it's well fleshed out. I don't have any confusion about that. They, especially in the last update, put in this really nice start to the game, where they kind of give you a background of dropping in from outer space from the Ark, and I think that they had fleshed that out quite a bit more than the way it used to be. So definitely give them high points on that. The character, this is a game where there's pretty much you're the main character, you're the protagonist. That's not unusual. There aren't a lot of other NPCs or people to interact with. That doesn't detract from the points that someone gets. Like I said, the world itself is kind of a character in traditional storytelling, so they've done a pretty good job there. The story arc of what we're trying to accomplish and why we want to do it was pretty clear early on. And there's a I think there's a book out there called Save the Cat or something like that I think is used by film writers maybe. And very early on, you need to hook people in and explain to them why they're doing this. And I felt like I knew why I was doing this. My mission was, it was a big and important mission, so that was okay with me. And then the story and the dialogue have been fine. I think, there's nothing unusual about the dialogue. I'm not picking up on any strange language. And just in my rating system, dialogue isn't just, it's not, let's say, the voice acting. The voice acting is part of the technical and art delivery of the game. So no problems on world and story. Easy 2, maybe 2.5. From a game mechanic and loop perspective, I think this game is really solid. I think it's an easy 3. There's really very little, there's one little nit, but honestly, for being only this far into the early access part of the game, I'm not sure they're not going to resolve it for me. So from a game mechanic perspective, this has been described as a Subnautica-like or a Raft-like game, and I think what that means, and this is the way I take it, is the mechanics are fine. It's a proven formula for the mechanics, and they have definitely adjusted it and grafted it on. I shouldn't say grafted onto. They've made it their own in this game. So from my experience with the other games, I have no complaints about the mechanics in it. The way that they designed it and the way it was supposed to function, right? The idea that I'm going to collect raw materials and that I'm going to take those and I'm going to build intermediate items, and then I'm going to be able to use a research station, and then the flight and the travel, that all seems to work just fine. I don't have any complaints about it at all. The only thing I think is a little unusual, and I said this early on in the playthrough, and that probably won't be part of this. This will be a shorter clip out. The only thing that's unusual is, and I don't know if I can show them to you here, they're right here, these little floating battery things in the distance. There are 3 resources you harvest from the air that are floating by, one of which is a synthetic material, which I don't really have any problem imagining is kind of a very lightweight synthetic plastic that kind of floats like a tumbleweed. The other is metal, which again, I kind of, in my own mind, imagine that to be kind of foil, but also very light and able to deal with the air and the turbulence. I'm a little confused about the batteries. I think they're great that they're there. And I'm going to say that very clearly, which is the extractor that you have on your arm in the game is an improvement over having a deck attached extractor, which was in the original game. Because it used to be you would build this thing onto the deck of your ship on a catwalk, and you would have to use that to draw things out of the air and gather your resources. This is an improvement to be able to use the extractor, which used to come much later in the game, and it used to require batteries, which was a lot of work. That was a deliberate mechanic that was kind of difficult to work with there. This is better. The idea that you can recharge this thing anywhere you are, it's not unlimited energy, but you can do something about it, no problem. And I don't even know if that's a mechanic issue for me, like the giant, that's almost more like art to me, which is like, what, I don't know why it's a floating battery. I would have thought maybe like ball lightning or something like that, like matter that had, kind of drawn together and was floating through the air but had an electrical charge. But no problem with the game mechanic. I'd give it an easy 3. Technical and art direction. So I combine these two. I haven't seen any bugs. That's the technical execution. I shouldn't say art direction. Technical and artistic execution of the vision and from what I can glean from it. I really haven't seen any bugs. There's an unstuck button, and I got stuck once, but this is early access, and I think that's, that happens. And I remember that happening before. Well, I might have to go stand inside my ship for the rest of this little review. I'll close all my doors here while I finish the review, and we'll just look out the windows. How nice is this, right? We'll look at my little ship here inside. So I don't have any problems with the technical side of it. I haven't really noticed any bugs. I guess there's one tiny exception, which was there's this creature they added recently that flies up to your ship and attaches to it. And I noticed that if you shoot the creature 3 times before it attaches to your ship, it'll still attach to your ship and it'll just stay there for a long period of time. And I didn't feel like I could make it go away. I would log out and log back in and it would go away. Didn't cause any harm. I don't have any complaints about that. But it felt like a tiny little bug. It's not something I would take much off of anyway. From an artistic perspective, I think the game looks great. I think I have the sound turned. Yeah, you can't hear it because I'm inside the ship and it's closed, right? But we just had a lightning strike outside, and the environmentals, the way the environment looks, it's fantastic. I think all the icons are crisp and clear and pretty easy to read. There's so much about it: the color, the sound, the light, the auditory cues when things are happening. I think all that's wonderful, and I would give that, that's easily 2.53 on its own. So for me, this game in early access, before I even put my extra 1 reviewer's point on top of it, is an easy 7.5. 8 points. So I think this is a solid game for me. I look forward to them finishing this game. Pretty excited about the price. Like I said, I've gotten, and I mentioned this during my live streams, probably easily 30-40 hours out of playing around with this. Even when I ran up against the limit of the early access in 2023, the ability to build your airship, expand that, gather materials, kind of gives you an open-ended side of it. So I'm pretty comfortable with the game. I look forward to seeing it as it's released, or even just as they provide updates as well. And I'd give it easily an 8.5 or higher. And I think, once I see the rest of the story, or maybe there's some explanation about the floating batteries that'll make sense to me as well, this could be, a 9 or above in my book. So with that, thanks for checking this out. I recommend the game, and we'll leave it at that.